Good evening. I'm very excited to be here tonight. I was last here, I think, nearly 10 years ago. I'll start by saying that when I first arrived in Texas, which is actually nearly 30 years ago, I started writing a series of essays titled An English Woman in Texas, not knowing that there was a certain very famous Texan who had written a book the other way round. And so I'm going to be reading today from J. Frank Dobie's book called A Texan in England, copyright 1944. And I'll just start by telling you that in 1943, Dobie was invited to become the second American scholar. Henry Steele Commager was the first, to lecture under the newly founded professorship in American history at Cambridge University in the UK. And the invitation held even after Dobie explained that his knowledge of history consisted mainly of facts relating to the length of the horns of longhorn steers, the music inherent in coyote howling, the duels Jim Bowie fought with his knife, and the habits of ghosts in guarding Spanish treasure. A Texan in England, the book, is a very humorous and really moving piece. And while it might not establish whether J. Frank Dobie conquered England or whether England conquered him, it is full of original and surprising conclusions. It's the story of professoring, he made up that word, at Cambridge, of dons, train rides, farmers, larks, pubs, gardens, and free minds. And so this is a tiny section of one of my favorite chapters called In Winter's Darkness. It is as dark as the inside of a cow here in the city of Cambridge. In London, it is as dark as a burglar's pocket. In many another place in England, it is as dark as the back corner of a bear's den. If glass were not so fragile, I would take a jar outside and let a sample of the fog settle into it and send it home. The fog hereabouts comes up from the fens, they say, the fens that the Romans were building a road across 2,000 years ago. The trains are creeping through the fog hours late. Last night, the buses all stopped running. I thought about the drivers of the army trucks and cars forever on the move, shifting between east and west, north and south, as ceaselessly, it seems, as currents of air everlastingly unstabilize between frigid and torrid. The dark is thicker tonight than it was last night. Maybe it is too thick to carry the sound of motors in the sky. At least I have not noticed the throb of a plane for hours. But the dark never gets heavy enough to keep people inside. I step out on the street, and except in the puddle of light made by my own torch, flashlight as called elsewhere, I can distinguish nothing. I do see coming and going brief dots of other torches, no stronger or more constant than the glowing of lightning bugs in a starlit valley. The toy lights on bicycles are more constant. If it were not for the tinkling of cyclists' bells, you'd think the lights were another kind of firefly. Any automobile daring the darkness is as dim as the bicycle light and nearly as slow in its progress. No matter how dark the night, the automobile driver cannot brighten his lights by a candle power. But it is not lights or absence of lights in the darkness that strikes one. It is the sounds from human feet and human voices, especially feet. Boots, 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 marching all together. I linger to let 5 or 6 voices and pairs of feet pass me. They are out in the middle of the narrow street, keeping step and keeping time. The voices and the firm but lightsome foot plantings are of young women. They are singing a song about something far away. It is a love song with sadness in it, the only kind of love songs that ever were or ever will be beautiful. From the step, 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 and from half a glimpse of a swinging arm as the voices pass me, I know that they belong to military women. There are other foot sounds without voices, many of them, some timid and groping, most of them direct. Hardly any pedestrian keeps his torch burning constantly. Everyone must save his batteries. There are voices now and then that seem to be without feet. The Americans sometimes have louder voices, not always. Passing the mouth of a side street, I hear down it in the direction of the Blue Boar, where the deer and the antelope play. For every audible voice, there seem to be dozens of audible feet. Now there is silence, broken only by my own steps. Presently, I hear another person's steps. I don't want to flash my light. My eyes are accommodated to the dark, and a light will unfocus them. I guess the other person feels the same way. Or maybe he does have a light to flash, or maybe he likes the mysteries of darkness. He is not far away, and we both stop at the same time, each to try to locate the other and prevent a collision. We pass without grazing. Now there is another wave of footbeats. The lightning bugs are again in the air. I know which direction I am walking, but I don't know why or to where. I am just walking. I am looking for something, I guess. There is a kind of hunger inside of me for something, but I don't know what it is. I wouldn't find it in any club or home. I wouldn't find it in a pub. I wouldn't find it in a book back in my room. I can't think of any place on earth where I might find it right now. True, it would be soothing to sit by a fire of mesquite wood behind a natural windbreak, away out in the big pasture country, and watch the Great Dipper swing. Yet that is not what I want. I wonder if all the people who are thumping their feet on the cement sidewalks and the paved street know where they are going, know why they are going, know what they want. I don't think so. The politicians always try to tell them what they want, something cheap that can be bought with dollars. One politician has tried to tell them that what they want is rubber, another that it is gasoline, another that it is uncontrolled prices on wheat. But rubber never made anyone happy. The cheaper a politician is, the cheaper the want is that he imagines other people feel, and that he tries to littleize them into crying for. But no all-day sucker ever lasted over 20 minutes. No child, much less an adult, ever found an all-day sucker that filled his wants. Steps, steps, steps in the dark, going nowhere. Voices in the dark, saying something. When I was a young man, a very young man, I found a sentence in Emerson that puzzled me then and awes me now. Young man, be careful what you want, for you will surely get it. Surely, I thought, life cannot be so simple as that. Years of experience and observation have taught me that what Emerson was, what he said, and is absolutely and literally right. We haven't all got as much as we wanted of whatever it is we wanted. Many have got too much of it, a sickening, dreary surfeit of it. All have got the kind, the quality of the thing they wanted. For months now, I have done little but read the history of my country, thousands of pages. I have been struck with how, through the repeated decades of American history, the people have got what they wanted. In the beginning, they were greatly concerned with the rights of man, and with not only freedom, but enlightenment. They got noble Washington, great and thoughtful Jefferson, righteous and unyielding old John Quincy Adams for their leaders. 100 years went on, and the people were all mad for normalcy. Democracy consisted no longer in the unalienable rights of man to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but in having things. The American way of life became the business way of life, and the people got as their leader a businessman, Warren G. Harding, as sorry and as muddle-headed a character as ever occupied the sorriest throne of the most run-down principality of Europe. In the days of Washington and Jefferson, and on through the years till the Civil War, the ambition of able and many not able young lawyers was to be a United States senator and to help in a grand way to govern their country. By the time big business took over government, the usual ambition of a bright young lawyer became, as it still is, to get himself retained by some corporation. The desire to serve his country had changed to a desire to sell his soul to a rich corporation, which is, for legal purposes, a person, but which morally is without conscience or humanity. And the young lawyers of each age got what they wanted. Not all of the first age could be John Randolphs or Websters, or all in the second age draw salaries from Standard Oil, but all got the kind of thing they wanted to get. I wonder why people say as dark as Egypt. Egypt connects with Moses. Where was Moses when the light went out, sitting in the window with his shirt tail out? Egypt can't be any darker than this. It's getting quite late now, and footfalls, voices, fog-dimmed glowworm lights have become very sparse. I am in one of the narrow, crooked little streets, laid out perhaps by cranes wading a trail through the fens back in the Middle Ages. I still don't know what I'm wanting, but I'm going back to my rooms. The buildings lining this street are only 3 or 4 stories high, but it is so narrow they make it like a little canyon. The least noise it echoes, the sound cushioned by the fog. I'm walking soft myself, and then I hear footfalls. I don't know whether to keep left or take right. Nobody else who walks in the blackout knows, but the earth treader approaching me evidently has no feelings of hesitation. His shoes are heavy, soldier's shoes probably. He's busting along. I flash my torch just for a few seconds so as not to disfocus my night horse eyes. The soldier puts on the brakes. "Say," he said, "how do you get to the Bull Hotel from here?" I told him. The Bull Hotel is run for American soldiers by the American Red Cross. "You live in this country?" the soldier in the dark asked, after my speech had betrayed me. I knew what he was coming to. I had noticed his accents too. "Well," I replied, "I'm living here right now." "How long have you been here?" "Oh, 2 or 3 months." "Where'd you come from?" "United States." "What part?" "Southern." "What state?" "Texas." I knew it, soon as I heard your voice. "What place in Texas?" "Austin." "My name's Ellis, and I live in Rockdale, just 60 miles from Austin. Ever there?" "Well, I've been through Rockdale lots of times. Once I went there to see a friend." "Who?" "George Sessions Perry." "Gee, everyone in Rockdale knows George Sessions Perry. He wrote a novel about Texas." And then he said in a more confidential tone, "What do you think about this country?" "What do you think about it?" "Well, the people are all right." "Yes, the people are all right." It was my time to ask a question. "Do you know W.T. Pearson of Rockdale?" "He's a sergeant over here. I saw him last week. He's using George Sessions Perry's book on Texas for the Bible." "Sure, I know Pearson. What do you say your name was?" I really had not said. The soldier in the dark went on. "Well, just think. I ask a stranger here in this blackout how to find the Bull Hotel, and the stranger turns out to be a neighbor in Texas, and he knows 2 people in Rockdale. I guess I'd better get on now and sleep a little. Strange, though, ain't it?" "Sort of strange," I said. "Good night." "Good night, Ellis." "Good luck." I like real soldiers. I like ships that pass in the blackened out night. Now I seem to know better what it was that I was wanting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bernadette. I've got a couple of questions for you as well.
Oh.
Before you read Dobie's description of England's darkness and fog and all of that. Had you considered it or more taken it for granted because it was what you were used to?
Everyone always teases me about English fog. Ever since I first arrived in America, everyone's been teasing me about English fog. I mean, people tease me about the weather all the time, but mostly it's about the fog. And I've got to tell you, the first time I arrived in America, it was foggy. I arrived in Houston and it was so foggy that we had to stop in Houston and we had to stay the night in a hotel. So I've actually been to places where the fog is much worse than in England. And for sure, it's worse in Houston. So there.
That's great. In this piece that you just read, Dobie says, I know which direction I'm walking, but I don't know why or to where. I'm just walking. I'm looking for something, I guess. There's a kind of hunger inside of me for something. I don't know what it is. And from reading your fabulous memoirs, T and Tripoli and Stealing Baby Jesus, I wonder if you and Dobie might have something in common, and I wonder if you found it in Texas?
You know, I didn't plan to stay in Texas. I came here 30 years ago, passing my way through. I was on my way to Los Angeles to become a movie actress, and I'm still here nearly 30 years later. So thank you, Texas, for ruining my movie career. But I will say, when I was driving here today, and I mentioned this to you earlier, that whenever I drive through South Texas on my way to George West, my heart is always full. And today was one of those beautiful days weather-wise, and everything was just gorgeous. The light was perfect, and the weather, the temperature was perfect. And I kept passing through towns that were familiar to me, and I thought, I'm where I'm supposed to be. And that is a wonderful feeling. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. We are so glad that you are here.
Thank you.
And that you share your wonderful talent with us. Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank you so much.
Nason.